In this video, I'm going to explain the sound side of movies. Generally, on your physical media discs, you'll have on the back different specifications telling you about the sound, the different types. But what does all this mean? Some people don't really know. They're just quite happy with a sound bar or a television that's got the speakers on the side. But I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about the sound that you're going to get on these discs. So let's talk about it today on the video. So welcome back to the channel, and if you're new here, my name is Matt, and this channel is all about physical media, looking at editions, talking about physical media. So if that's something you like, click that QR code on the screen if you're watching this on the television, or click that subscribe button down below. Come and join the channel. There's a wealth of playlists for you to enjoy. Okay, so let's start at the beginning, and I'm going to put up some diagrams to help sort of explain, what I'm talking about here. So traditionally, when you listen to music, you generally listen to it in stereo. So that's two speakers either side of a music system, or on a phone if you've got two speakers in it, or a tablet or computer, or even a television. Generally there's two speakers on one either side of the television. Then we can move on to what you find on DVDs. And generally you'll find what's called a 5.1 mix. So this will include two speakers at the front, a central speaker where the sound of the audio speech from the actors will come out, two rear speakers which will generally be surround sound effects, and a subwoofer which is generally for bass. So like in films when you get explosions, big scenes with sort of rumbles, thunder and all this sort of a thing, that will provide your 0.1. Then we move up to what's called Dolby Atmos, and generally this is what's called a 5.1.4 or a 7.1.4. So what does that mean? Well, let's stick with the 5.1.4. So we know what the 5 speakers are. We know what the 0.1 is. The 0.4 are the 4 speakers that are the Atmos speakers. Generally, they'll either be up-firing speakers, which will fire the sound up to your ceiling and then come back down again to give you sort of an overhead effect. So if you're watching movies where there's planes flying over, thunder, overhead effects, this kind of thing, that will produce your Atmos effect. If you have like a dedicated theatre or cinema room, you can have inbuilt ceiling speakers which ideally give you the best possible sound. The reason behind Dolby Atmos is to create an immersive bubble. And generally you will see on the 4K discs, but sometimes on Blu-ray discs, the Dolby Atmos logo. There's a rival company as well which is called DTS. Now DTS largely started on DVD, and you'll see it on the back of your discs, on the back of the cover, and it will say 5.1 DTS. On Blu-rays you'll see a lot of a DTS master audio. So again, this is a rival company to Dolby, producing very similar audio. I generally find with DTS they lean far more on the bass side of things. So if you like a lot of bass in your sound mixes, you're probably going to prefer the DTS format. However, on the 4K format, you don't see as much DTS. Now DTS do have a immersive sound which is called DTS-X. Essentially it's the same thing as Dolby Atmos. It's still giving you the overhead effects, but like I say, with DTS they are a little bit more bass heavy. And actually I tend to prefer the DTS mixes, but sadly there aren't as many of those. Dolby seems to have got the monopoly on most of the releases with most of the studios. They've got the licensing. So we talked about the different sound formats. So why is that important to you? Well, in my opinion, sound is 50% of the experience when you're watching a film. So when you go to the cinema, you get this setup, all these speakers surrounding you, speakers in the ceiling, and you get that full cinematic experience. Would you like to have that in your own home? It is possible, but you do have to buy the equipment for it. Now there's different ways you can do it. You can buy sound bars which will have sort of 5.1 or 7.1 or Dolby Atmos or even DTS-X built into them. It's not as good as a separate system. In my situation, I have a separate setup. So I have an amplifier and a receiver. So the receiver sends all the audio signals to all the different speakers. Now in my setup, I have a 7.1.4 setup. The 7 speakers is just an additional 2 speakers which are at the sides, just to add a little bit more immersion to the 5.1 which I've talked about earlier. Unfortunately, I don't have the in-ceiling speakers, but I do have the up-firing speakers that, like I say, will bounce the sound off of the ceiling and back down again. This gives you that sort of immersive sort of feeling to the sound, and it creates more of a cinematic experience. So I will say with the separates route, it does tend to involve a lot of cables, speaker wires. So if you don't mind having that kind of thing sort of trailing around your room, you can buy sort of speaker tidy cables to hide a lot of this stuff. But for a lot of people, that kind of puts you off having all of this stuff in your house. Manufacturers are producing wireless speakers now, which still do require power to them, but don't necessarily need all the speaker wires having to be connected to all the individual speakers. They generally work off what the Bluetooth format. Now, if you've heard of Bluetooth, you may have seen it on your phone, your mobile phone, and this essentially allows you to connect devices such as earpods wirelessly using Bluetooth. So there's much more options now to be able to have immersive sound within your own home to kind of give you that cinematic experience. If you're just watching films on streaming and you're just watching it through the television, you will find that the sound isn't quite to the same level that you would get on the physical discs. And this is what's called lossy audio. Now, lossy means that the signal that's coming down the fibre optic cable from your internet provider isn't quite as strong as it would be on a disc. On a disc format, you get lossless audio, certainly on Blu-ray and 4K. DVD is still lossy technically, but it's better than what you would get on a streaming site. So would I recommend going the sort of surround sound route? Absolutely. If you want to experience movies in the best way possible, get that sort of cinematic experience, then buying discs that will produce the audio on them that you can send to the speakers in whatever format you want, whether that's like a wireless system or a separate system, or even a sound bar with all of this stuff sort of combined into one or two to three speakers. There are these options. So hope you've enjoyed this video talking a little bit about the sound side of physical media. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts down below. How do you watch movies? Do you watch them just on your television with the two speakers, or do you have a sound bar? Do you have wireless speakers with the sort of surrounds at the back, the Atmos? Or do you have like a home cinema setup with a receiver, amplifier, separate speakers? Do you have Dolby Atmos, or do you just have a 5.1 mix? I'd be interested to hear your thoughts down in those comments. And come back for some more videos on the channel. I'll leave a link to a playlist here. You can go and check out some of these other videos. Hope you enjoy. See you next time.